Welcome to Cast and Crank Podcast. Today we have Clayton Sly from Sly Guy Lures. Great dude. I didn't know he actually lived around my house for a little while, so that's kind of crazy. But he has a pretty crazy looking swim bait, and it's pretty realistic. And he tells his whole story about it, so it's a good one. It's a call-in one, too. You'll see a video up on YouTube in the next day or two. I got to work on that. Also, I got to put the Informative Fisherman's episode up, too. I also want to say thank you to Olukai, all our sponsors we had so far. It's been great. Right now, we have no sponsors, so you won't have to hear anything. But I want to say thank you to Jamie Cohen. I'm not asking for handouts or anything like that, but he donated some money to the podcast, and I really appreciate that. Huge gesture. I like I said, I'm not a Patreon guy or anything like that. I don't want to do that, but I did appreciate that a lot. Next week we have Hopper and EB talking about whaler rebuild, so it's a really good one. And I'm trying to schedule some guests right now. We had a couple fall through, so with this COVID thing, I'm going to start doing it probably in person because we're clearing up, I guess, Friday, I hope. We'll see. Hope everyone stays safe. Thanks for listening. And you kind of wanted to make it like, so my first question would be, I guess, how long have you done it? Do you do it as a job right now? Is this your full-time job?
Yeah, it's been full-time for me since 2017, January 2017.
Okay. Was that a big jump for you to make it full-time?
It was a really big jump, and I'm going to say it up front so my wife hears it early when I make her listen to this. And I'm only able to do it because she's awesome. She ended up getting a great job, so I was able to take the risk. And for starting out any small business, it's usually like a 2 or 3 year risk before, you actually start building clientele and building a name and actually start making money, because the initial investment to do all of this is substantial. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of seen a couple dudes like Caesar from Talks that's been on. He's kind of talked about making the jump. Yeah, I mean, 86 Baits, he just made the jump recently. So, I mean, that's kind of a big deal. And you kind of been doing it for a while to where, you kind of have the experience. So I could see why you would want to do your own deal, But when did it kind of trigger to you that you could be like, oh, I'm selling 10 baits, I'm selling 15, 20. And like, how did that, like, when did it kind of click for people to buy your bait?
That started with the 4-piece bluegill.
Wow.
That guy right there.
Yeah.
That's when that started. I posted a couple pictures on Swim Bait Underground in the grassroots section, and the first 2 people I ever sold to were Bass 68, Brian Vaughn, and Big Slant, Anthony Durst. So really awesome guys, and they spread the word really quickly, and then it started getting a little out of hand.
Yeah.
So then I had to start making them for people, and I actually don't even own the production version of the 4-piece bluegill because that's how many people would bug me about it. So I would just sell my own personal baits over and over and over again.
Oh, really? So the one that you had, you would be like, I don't even feel like making this, here you go, or kind of deal.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't own a single one anymore. That first one there is the only one that I own.
Wow. But you have the mold still, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Of course.
How many molds do you think you have?
Oh my gosh. Jeez. I mean, well, I sent you the picture of the table that I got in front of me here with all the baits on it. In my shop, I've probably got well over 200 molds.
Wow.
But they wear out. They don't last for forever, and that's the thing that people don't realize. We're constantly making new molds, so we're constantly going through silicone. They only last like 50 days.
Really?
50, 60 days.
Wow.
Yeah, for the most part. Before you start losing detail and before you start, having to do more work to what comes out of them. Yeah.
Could you use a Luminlight? Have you ever tried that?
Tried a Luminlight.
Just doesn't work the same? No. You don't get the detail, huh?
It's all just personal preference.
Okay.
I know a lot of guys. There's so many things now, and it's it's all so comparable.
Yeah.
People could use this, that, and end up with something that's so incredibly similar.
Yeah. How long does it take you to build like one of your baits? And I have a question about that new one you're doing. It's pretty cool.
Wait, what'd you say?
That new one you're doing, it looks like you could see some detail on that thing. To me, I'm gonna guess what it looks like to me. Looks like you either molded a fish or something like that, and the detail's amazing on it.
Yes. So that's part of the, I guess the history of what I do. It started making them, and I've been carving baits for forever. And everybody kind of starts out carving, looking like something else. This one was supposed to look like a Lake Junior, being about the same size. Tail is obviously different, but when people are young and they're first getting started, they just, it's the copycat game.
Yeah.
You see something that works and you go, I want that. Or like a Lunker Punker style.
Yeah.
Something small like that. So everything was like that. Until more and more people started doing it, more and more people got, they were, man, every other guy was saying, hey, you copied this and you copied that and you stole my design. And so I've been thinking about it and I said, man, this is going to be ridiculous if I ever did one of these. But mostly it was for me because people would fish would swim up to baits and, turn away. So I was like, oh, it's just because they're not realistic enough.
Yeah.
When I first got started. Now I know it's not actually that. But insofar as thinking about potentially being blamed for copying someone else's design, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go straight to the original design. So I started learning how to mold real fish very early on. Those were all of my questions to Vodka Man for the most part. How do I do this? So I started with baby bass. I thought baby bass was where it's at, and that was about 12 years ago.
Wow.
Started with baby bass. I thought the baby bass glide or the baby bass swim bait is the thing, They eat them everywhere. Well, because back then it was all trout baits.
Yeah.
For the most part. And here on the Delta, they weren't eating trout. So I was like, it's got to be the baby bass. So I started making baby bass, and then that was the first thing I ever molded was a little baby bass. And
wow.
castings came out terribly, so I hand carved all the details into it. Progressively got a little bit better, a little bit more detail on there. And then this bait, I think this bait was 2011 or so. Mm-hmm. But you can see there a lot more detail in that baby bass.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been molding real fish and adding, obviously, you can't just mold a fish and then make a lure out of it. It is way more complicated than that. That one that I just posted is, it's kind of cool. It's been full circle for me. I'm finally coming back to the baby bass, and well, I guess I'll show it.
That'd be great because I seen a little bit of it, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
The scales on that, I'm like, oh man, that looks good, dude. Yes, that looks great. Yeah. Or do other guys do the same thing and mold fish that you know of?
I do. Unfortunately, I am starting to see a lot of people, some even established bait makers, abandoning their older style and starting to mold real fish, which it's good and fine and all. It's America.
Yeah.
It's free country.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do.
Yes.
I don't have a patent on the process for molding real fish. You can't get that. So it's like, okay, that's fine. Not a big deal. The issue comes in though when people message me say, "Hey, your bait sucks. I want my money back."
But don't you think you get that? Just it's like that type of society now with Instagram where people can instantly just hate on you or say whatever they want. You get dudes messaging you and going, "Hey, do this, this, and this would be way better." You know, it's like, well, you know what are you gonna do? You know?
No. The issue is people buying another brand's bait, thinking I made it.
Oh, okay.
And then it's mine, and it sucks. It's like, no, I didn't make that actually.
Do you have a signature on your baits too?
What?
Do you have a signature, like something that you sign on your bait that they know it's yours?
I was doing something like that, but at this point, I'm just kind of not. I was putting a raw decal on the back that had the logo on it.
Mm-hmm.
It was so incredibly time consuming on top of everything else, though. It's like I just got away from it.
Do you think, like, and another question for you, since you talked about in the beginning, you kind of try to not copy, but you're pretty much trying to make a punker or whatever it is. And the goal for a lot of bait makers in the beginning, do you feel like it's like, okay, let's just make something that swims like this, but my own take on it? That's how you start. You go, hey, let me make my own take. Because the truth is, how many glide baits can you make that look different? You know, like they're going to look somewhat the same. You're going to get 3 or 4 of them, you know, and that's another question is, like, in the beginning, like you said, you're kind of carving. So nowadays when you get new people making baits, how do you go about making something new? What do you do? What would you do, like, when you're trying to go, let's try to make this a little different? Everyone's making a punker or a glide bait or, you know, a crank down. You got to think out of the box. So kind of what makes you think out of the box where you think your bait's like a little different than everyone else's? Is it the realistic mold that you have?
When it was the realism, aside from, and I didn't know about this other guy when I first started. Even in 2017, I was one of 2 people who were molding real fish. And now, just in this past year, I've probably seen 4 or 5 new guys trying to do it and sell baits. And the thing for me is, like, when I was young and I was on Swim Bait Underground, I posted a picture of that first baby bass 4-piece one that I had made, and I had asked the question, what do you guys think? Scales or no scales? Because it was a smooth side originally. And at the time, Mickey Ellis was on Swim Bait Underground quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I asked him if I could use his, his tail design, the Lexan, like he's got on the Wake Junior.
Yeah.
Just kind of jokingly. And he asked me for my phone number and gave me a call and kind of talked to me about a lot of stuff. And everything that he said, I took to heart, especially because I was new to it, and he's obviously, like, the man.
One of the original dudes, yeah.
The original dude, yeah. Like, he was part of my inspiration. Seeing his, I still have the Field and Stream magazine where he had the article in there about the Armageddon. Coolest thing ever. So he called me and he was like, hey, you, like, don't be copying other people's stuff. There are better tail designs out there. There's a better bait out there. Look at stuff, work at it, but don't be offering something to people when it's not completely ready. Don't be getting started and then instantly asking $100 for your bait. Like, I've seen so many people do that now too. It's like, oh, I just made this bait, $150.
Yeah, that's another thing, is that there's no policing really, because people will buy it. Right? I mean, if someone likes it, it could swim like shit. Who knows? And you're gonna buy it. You know, you make a limited run, and it's like, who polices that? But and Mickey was a hard dude. From what I've heard, he's a hard guy. So it was kind of cool to hear something like that from him, right? Like, to give you some information like that. Yeah.
I don't remember the conversation fully, but I did really appreciate it. If he had a negative tone, I only took it positively, just because, like, he's a great dude and his message is awesome too. I really appreciate it.
And he, you know, another thing that I think that I appreciate that he did was called you. He didn't put it out publicly. He said, hey, give me your number. That's another thing people don't do nowadays, and I think that's a cool thing for someone to do that. But again, how long ago was this? What, 3 or 4 years ago? Or was it way back?
This was like 10 years ago.
So then this was like when pretty much Swim Bait Underground was Instagram at the time. I mean, because there was no Instagram for swim baits like this, and you know?
Yep. Yep. Exactly it. My first Instagram post was like, when was that? Like 2012. I was at Castaic Lagoon. That was a picture of the AC plug style bait that I made in a trout pattern.
Yeah. Do you? You live up north then, right?
Yep. Still live next to the Delta.
Wow. So you fish the Delta a lot. It's closed right now, isn't it closed?
No, it's not closed.
Are you still fishing a lot?
I got out yesterday.
Did you? Doing good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. Tough enough. Did terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
It's the warmest day that we've had all year. So went out there with the intention of getting bit on the swim bait. My dad was throwing that new baby bass glide bait. Mm-hmm. He had one between 6 and 8 pounds come up. He was going to eat it. He twitched it a little too aggressively, and the fish got a little spooked and then took off.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. That's all just part of it. But all of the fish were on beds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a bummer.
You don't bed fish, huh?
Gosh dang. No, I don't like to.
No.
I do not like to at all.
Yeah, I've heard of, I mean, I don't know. I don't really, I'll largemouth fish with dudes, not often, maybe a couple times a month, if that, once a month. I live next to the ocean, so I fish calico a lot, and I fish spotted bay bass and stuff, you know, so it's easier for me. It takes me 10 minutes, and 15 minutes, I'm already launched and ready to go. You know, if I lived by a lake, I'd be like, let's go. But so when you started making baits, did you have a trial and error period when you started selling them and they would break and dudes would be like, dude, this broke. Dude, the hardware, did you use screws? Maybe you twist wired? How did that procedure go?
If I remember, I didn't start selling baits until after, like, I think those first ones that I really sold, those bluegills, I didn't sell those until 2016.
Wow.
So I made baits for a long time before I ever sold them. And every single bait here is absolutely thrashed. Missing eyes, like, I didn't make them for other people as my original intention. That wasn't, I wanted them. When I was young, first getting started, I went on to Tackle Underground. Tackle Underground? No. Tackle Warehouse.
No. It was
Tackle Warehouse.
Tackle. Oh, are you talking about to buy baits or to
Yeah, to buy baits.
Yeah, okay.
And the AC plugs were $20, and I was like, I can make that. Like, I can make that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my dad and I's catchphrase. I can make that. Literally everything is we're ultimate DIYers, and that's ultimately how I got started. Because my dad was like, yeah, you probably could. So that was how I started, because I didn't want to buy baits.
Yeah.
And I don't entirely remember where I was going with that. What was your question?
So you didn't sell any baits until you kind of locked down your designs and the way you had the hinges, everything like that, right?
Yep. I made them for myself because I wanted to catch fish. And I fished with them for years and years and years and years before I sold any of them.
Do you have any people that caught some really big fish on your baits?
I think the brand record is my buddy Rick, Delta X Limits. Shout out. You can pay me later, Rick. He caught a 11.99
wow.
on the 9-inch trout. Yeah.
Wow, that's nice. Do you have that one there with you?
I have a 9-inch trout. Yes, I do.
That's cool. So we could see it, and that we do the YouTube so people can actually see the bait. You know, I tried to do that with Purcell when I first started, and I tried to buy cameras, and I always bought the wrong one. It was a DSLR every time, and you can't go longer than 30 minutes with the DSLR. So I kept getting screwed,
Gotcha.
and the camera would be shot. I did it with Mike Gilbert. Manny Cheese worked out good, but everyone else's was kind of like, oh man. Do you have the intentions of ever going farther than you go right now? Maybe doing a production of your bait, or not really?
Like you're talking like mass produced?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, for me, the quality is so important. I've been presented with that opportunity, and I haven't taken it. I really don't want to, just because I'm kind of a control freak and obviously a little bit of a perfectionist in some ways. So, I have a box of baits that didn't pass swim tests. Like, I don't send out stuff that I wouldn't fish myself.
Wow.
Because that's just the way it is. Like, obviously your brand is everything that you've got. And so if you're sending out stuff that isn't going to work, or for example, the paint failing, I had a batch of bait. Paint just didn't stick. So I've got everybody that's contacted me about it, by the way, has gotten that bait repainted or a brand new bait sent.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me. Like, the customer service is the most important aspect to me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't ever want to send out a product that didn't swim properly, or the paint didn't adhere properly. Anything like that. I want them to catch fish, and I want them to last for forever, or until you lose them.
Yeah. About paint, you do paint yourself too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Started airbrushing, all 15 years ago.
Yeah. What kind of clear do you like to use on your baits?
Automotive Clearcoats.
Automotive. That seems the go-to for a lot of people that do swim baits. I'm used to doing on my jerk baits in the salt was the DevCon, 2-part epoxy.
Okay.
Only because it's hold on really quick. Let me decline that call. Only because it would hold up in the salt, which I'm hitting more boilers and stuff. Did you have to play around with clears in the beginning to kind of get it to swim right after you weighed it? Could screw yourself sometimes, Right? Yeah.
Yep. A lot of trial and error with Clearcoat. This bait here, well, the Delta fish are kind of different too. They eat so many crawdads that their teeth aren't necessarily as sharp as in a lake.
Mm-hmm.
So this might be kind of a skewed example, but this bait here, I've got well over 20 fish on it.
Wow.
And it doesn't even have hook rash yet. And that's not the case with every bait, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Some of them hook rash a little bit easier, and some of them don't. It's probably a minute difference in the way I mix Clearcoat, but it's kind of the way it is.
Yeah, yeah. And you make so what different baits do you make? Do you make a bluegill, a trout style, a crank down, same thing? Do you have like a couple different ones? And what's your is your main bait gonna be that baby bass? Is that like your main star?
The main bait is, or probably the most popular bait is the big 7.5-inch replica gill.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when I started making this, the only other big bluegill glide was the Depths Bullshooter, and now there are so many bluegill glides.
There is.
It's ridiculous. Well, and I'll take that back. And Mickey's.
Okay.
Mickey had his, but Matt Lures never made one. And that's kind of another thing I was thinking about earlier. I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to other bait makers and guys that have been around for forever, one of the biggest things for me was respecting them and their perspective, like niches. So I vowed never to make a 3-piece bluegill because of Matt Lures. I hardly ever sell the Wake bluegill because of, guys who are making a living off of it, like Caesar and UFO. Like, I don't need to sell those. Like, I can sell other stuff. Totally fine. So out of respect for a bunch of other guys in the industry, I don't make a lot of things. I'll make them for myself. Totally.
Yeah.
But just, I like these other guys. They're all great dudes for the most part.
It feels like you all guys all kind of. Oh, hold on one sec. I'm calling right now. That phone, huh? Sorry. It feels like you guys all have a mutual respect up there, maybe, or some of the bait makers. You talk to other guys and you kind of like trade a little info, or is it kind of just you kind of like doing that personally?
I don't care if they're that way at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be that way, but yeah, for the most part, a lot of guys are very respectful of that.
That's good.
So,
yeah, I mean, you got to have that too. It's because I mean, like I said, I'd love there to be more podcasts. I love there to be more stuff because it brings everybody up, and you can't hate on someone else's idea or someone else has done something. But so you don't try to sell, you make a 3-piece, but that bluegill you still sell though, right? The 2-piece, you sell that a lot. Okay. And that was like one of your main ones when you kind of came out with that, where people bought a lot of them. Did you have a store then, or were you just selling on Swim Bait Underground?
Only online. So originally it was just through like taking orders and then fulfilling orders and then sending them out. I hated that whole process. I never took money up front. Unlike at that time, there was the big drama of pre-orders and then guys running off with money, and you'd never see your money or your bait ever again. So I avoided that whole shenanigans. And then finally got the website up late mid 2018, I think. And I stopped doing the pre-order system and just doing the batch drop system.
You were doing pre-orders too?
Like that too.
You did pre-orders also? You did pre-orders also?
Yeah. Okay. I did pre-orders for a long time. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have to do pre-orders just to get it going, or what was the purpose, you think, of the pre-order?
Initially, because this is like our art, there's always this sense of fear where it's like, okay, what if I put up a bunch of these and then nobody buys them? So when it comes to pre-orders, like, I wanted to know exactly what people wanted and what colors they wanted them to be. That way they got what they wanted. Now it's not feasible for me to do that. It's got to be, for my own sanity, I've got to just make a ton of everything. And then if I end up with something sitting in the store for a while, then post about it on Instagram.
Yeah. And do you just do sales sometimes with something sitting for a minute, a color, or most of the time does everything get bought up?
Knock on wood, so far everything's been sold, obviously, except for the baits that don't work.
That's because you don't put them up, though. I mean, yeah. Other than that, I mean, it looks like it's going real good. And you've had an Instagram for a while too, right? Like when this all first started, you jumped on pretty quickly.
Yeah. I didn't get any followers for baits or anything for a really long time. The video that I posted of a 4-piece trout swimming super slowly, that was the video that's gone around Instagram for years now. Mm-hmm. That one still goes around. And then a video that my buddy Jonathan Doe shot of the 9-pounder eating the replica gill, like at his feet.
Oh, wow.
So both of those went viral, and so
yeah,
moderately viral.
When you do the replicas, how long did it take you to kind of like master the way you do it now? I know you can't give away much, so I'm kind of trying to like ask you a question. I know it's your livelihood.
Yeah.
But did you have to go, okay, maybe Vodka Man or someone told you this is kind of how I do it? Do you do like a couple different mixtures of different things?
Yeah. At some point, nobody was really able to help with anything.
Wow.
You start getting to a point where you are looking at basically, it feels like underwater rocket science. Every fin has an effect. Every line tie placement, every hook hanger location, it all has an effect. So, as an example, the big replica gill, I spent 3 months straight working on this. So, hundreds of hours just working on the first ones, just to make sure it swam like I wanted it to. before I even made a single production mold of it. So they all go through the paces really, really considerably.
Were you getting kind of screwed up when you're trying to weigh it too? Because you're making the replica, and I'm sure weighing something that's a little thinner like that has got to be a bitch to get it to swim right? That must have taken you a while, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm using an actual fish's profile, it is extremely difficult to use an actual fish's profile just because they're built differently. They're not supposed to swim like live baits do. They're supposed to swim like, 3 and 4 piece baits.
Yeah.
Little tail kicks. So they'd be great as soft baits.
Yeah.
But
and the bluegill I like too is if you pick it back up, the ass end's pretty big too, where you don't see that as much in some of these. Like, it's so realistic where you don't see the ass end, like kind of where you have the joint too. Like that's a pretty like realistic looking bait, man.
Yeah. Yep. And there's a profile shot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where it's a little thinner than like a lot of the other guys that make a bluegill bait or something like that. Do you and you'll do drops too when you do these baits, like a lot of these guys do? Like, hey, I'm doing a drop of this many. Do they sell out pretty quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Matt from 86 Baits, and he's like, yeah, I did one, and I think it was like 5 minutes or something. I'm like, that's wild. So crazy, to have that many people want your bait. And I'm sure for you to see it grow from 15 years to what it is now, right?
It's pretty insane. I'm just riding the wave while it's here. I don't know how much longer it'll last, but we'll ride it while it's here.
Do you get a lot of any tournament guys hit you up for baits?
Yeah. They usually want the smaller bluegill glide, like the 5.9.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool, man. I hope you get out and do a little more fishing. You fish down this way a little then sometimes?
When I was in college, I did. Absolutely hated.
Did you fish down? Did you go to college down here?
I did. I went to Biola in La Mirada.
I live in Buena Park. I live right by Biola. That's funny. Yeah, I had a couple friends that went there. Did you fish La Mirada Regional, man? Now we're getting local.
I did. I did fish it, and I hated it.
It's a horrible lake. I actually haven't fished there for, I want to say 2 years, and I went back last week because I'm like, I need to go do something. I caught a little 2-pounder on a depths. I was stoked. Hey, never catch anything there. I fucking hate that lake. Did you fish Ralph B, all the little park lakes then too, down here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Fished Ralph B. That was probably my favorite one just because the water ended up being a little bit clearer and you could actually see fish.
Yeah.
What was the other one?
Laguna. Yeah, Laguna. That's my favorite. Yeah. That's by far my favorite.
So, story about that lake. I was fishing there right after they did a trout stocking. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there fishing a baby grass glide and watching fish crush trout. Middle of the lake. I didn't even get a bite. Didn't even get a follow. I hate Southern California fish, just for the record. They are... You guys have it way harder than I'd ever want it to. We're pretty blessed up here in Northern California.
Yeah.
Fishing pressure is nothing like it is down there. So fishing it and watch this 5-pounder start chasing this trout out in the middle of the lake. That trout came screaming towards the bank. Wow. And instead of getting eaten by the bass, decided to commit suicide. He jumped out of the water in front of me and landed on the bank. That trout is now that bait.
No way you kept that then. So when you were going to school, you're making baits?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Wow. So you were making them down here. Did you talk to any swim bait guys down here when you were going to school?
I did. Never fished with them. Everybody that I had talked to back then was really tight-lipped. Yeah. And I didn't really have time to fish either. I was working my way through college, working at the BJ's restaurant in Cerritos.
Yeah, yeah. My mom used to run a retirement home around the corner, so that's why I know where that is. That's funny. Yeah. You're a local guy.
I worked there for 4 years.
Wow, that's cool, man. I would have never known you're a local guy down this way for a little bit.
Just for as short as it possibly could be. I hated Southern California, man. I got married in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up living in Whittier. It would take me 45 minutes to get from freaking Whittier to Cerritos. And it's like right down 605.
That's where I grew up, Whittier. So that's actually my hometown is Whittier.
Really?
Yeah. Where did you live in Whittier?
Greenleaf.
Greenleaf. Oh, so uptown Whittier.
Yeah.
Okay, I lived off of Whittier Boulevard by the Norm's Hamburger Stand. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, right there.
Yep.
So that's cool, man. I'm sure some of the local guys would be like, "Oh man, I didn't know this guy was down here, fishing." But thanks again for coming on, man, and doing this podcast. I'm just trying to meet some dudes that I really haven't had on the podcast and some bait makers, and you've been one I've seen a lot of people talk about, and I'm really interested in how you did it, and I'm glad you explained. Let's plug where they can get your baits and stuff. Go ahead.
Instagram is probably the best way to know when drops are going to batches are going to drop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a set schedule for doing them. I try to do as many as I can at one time, so that there's actually more of a chance that as more people are going to get them on the drop. And also trying to keep baits seasonal is really difficult for me. Always feels like I'm behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like I should have had bluegill glides up last week, and I'm going to have shiners and wake baits up in like 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, man. Well, keep working, keep grinding, bro. And
absolutely.
Thanks again. And I'll hit you up for a picture. So when we put this up, we can put up a picture to promote. So thanks again, dude. I appreciate you getting on the podcast.
Absolutely. Look forward to doing it again sometime.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing it, by the way.
Yeah.
It is really awesome for the community.
Thank you. Appreciate it.